अखण्डमण्डलाकारं व्याप्तं येन चराचरं तत्पदं दर्शितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। पञ्चतत्त्वात्मकं कृष्णं भक्तरूपस्वरूपकं भक्तावतारं भक्ताख्यं नमामि भक्तशक्तिकं। नमः पङ्कजनाभाय नमः पङ्कजमालिने नमः पङ्कजनेत्राय नमस्ते पङ्कजाङ्ग्रये। कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय देवकीनन्दनाय च नन्दगोपकुमाराय गोविन्दाय नमो नमः। वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुं। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। सर्वेभ्यो नमः। सर्वेषां कृते स्वागतम्। We are now in the 10th chapter of Bhagavad-gita. We have done up to 30 shlokas in the last session, and today we will look at the 31st shloka, and we will also continue with the story of Bhishma. The last session's shloka was as follows. Srimad Bhagavad Gita, chapter 10, shloka number 30. Prahladaschasmi daityanam kalaha kalayatamaham mriganam cha mrigendroham vainateyascha pakshinam. Shri Bhagavan said that among his vibhutis, in the sons of descendants of Diti, I am Prahlad. So, like we discussed last time, Prahlad was very prominent because he was full of good qualities. And he was a Mahan Bhakta of Bhagavan. And through his character, he inspired many people. Among the forces that subdue, I am the force called as time. We discussed that Kala is the most powerful subduer. There's nothing as powerful as Kala in subduing. Among the animals, I am the lion. And among the birds, I am Garuda, who is also known as Vainateya. So this was what we discussed in the last class. In today's class, shloka number 31, Shri Bhagavan says, Pavanah pavatamasmi Rama shastrabhritamaham Jashanam makaraschasmi Srotasamasmi jannavi. So again, Shri Bhagavan takes the examples of 4 vibhutis. Okay, now the 10th chapter as a whole is about his vibhuti. Vibhuti is, in Sanskrit, vibhuti means splendor, magnificence. So Shri Bhagavan is giving us examples of vibhuti to show us ways in which we can think about him when we want inspiration from awe. So pavatam asmi. Pavatam means those elements which are purifying, those things which purify. So among all things which can purify, I am pavanaha, or the air. Okay, so there are different things which can purify something that's dirty. A place is dirty, then you can use a detergent and purify it. You can use a disinfectant. Or let's say it's naturally existing outside. Then the sunlight is said to be very purifying. The sunlight falls on something, it purifies that place. Similarly, we know water is purifying. If the place is dirty, you can clean it with water, it purifies. But overall, among all things which can purify, according to Sri Bhagavan, it is the air. When air moves over time, every place gets purified. So if there is a place which is bad, dirty, smelling, filthy, infected, then the movement of air, if there is free air, then it purifies that place. Now, generally speaking, when we live also, if we live in a place where there is good movement of air and there is also sunlight, then there is a lot of cleanliness. There's a lot of purity in that place. Okay, so pavanaha pavatamasmi. Pavanah pavatamasmi. Ramaha shastrabhritamaham. Shastram means weapons. Shastrabhrit means a person who carries weapons. Shastrabhritam means those, among those people who carry weapons, I am Rama. And here this Rama refers not to Sri Ramachandra, son of Dasharatha, but to Parashuram. Parashuram is known to be a person who is an expert in holding and using weapons. Okay, he has trained many great fighters. So we'll hear a little bit more about his life today. We already know some of these things, and these points I've taken from 3 different sources. One is the Mahabharata itself, where he appears. He appears in the Padma Purana. and in, of course, the Srimad Bhagavatam as well. So Parashurama is considered an avesh avatar of Bhagavan. In the Dashavatara of Jayadeva Goswami, the 10 avatars of Vishnu that was first created by a saint by name Jayadeva Goswami, who lived in Odisha and Bengal long back, very long back. And in that list of 10 avatars, which is publicly known, commonly known as 10 avatars of Vishnu, Parashurama appears as the sixth one, right? Just before Ramachandra. Parashurama, Rama, and then Balaram. These three, one after the other, they come. So Parashurama is not Swayam Bhagavan himself. He is an Avesh avatar, a Jivatma who is empowered or who is given additional potency in terms of his knowledge, his abilities, and so on. So he's called a Shakti-Avesh avatar or an Avesh avatar. So he appears as the son of the sage Jamadagni and his wife Renuka. His mother's name is Renuka. And there's a famous, narrative of his killing the king by name Kartavirya Arjuna, okay, who's also called Arjuna. So there are two Arjunas. One is the Pandava Arjuna, and the other is this Kartavirya Arjuna, who lived much before this Arjuna. And Kartavirya Arjuna was a very dharmic king, very just and very dharmic king, but very similar to the story of Vishwamitra. In the Vishwamitra story, we hear that before all those incidents happened, Vishwamitra also was a dharmic king in a very dharmic parampara. And he followed dharma, he upheld dharma. But he got tempted by looking at the cow of Vasishta, Kamadhenu. And very similarly here, Jamadagni had a similar cow, also known as Kamadhenu. Maybe the same Kamadhenu was with him before. I don't know that connection, but his cow also was known as Kamadhenu. And once when Kartavirya Arjuna visited, as a king, he visited this sage, just like Vishwamitra visited Vasishta. He saw this cow, and the sage used the cow to do seva, to give him his, guest services. He served him with the help of the cow, with Kamadhenu. And Kartavirya Arjuna then became attracted. And he said, please give me this cow. And Jamadagni said, I can't give because she is the one that is sustaining me. All my puja, everything happens through her. Then he gets angry and he chops off Jamadagni's head. He kills him. And so when Parashurama returns, he's not there at that time when this happens. And so he returns and he comes to hear from his mother that this is what happened when you were away. He becomes furious. And so with this axe, he goes and he fights with Kartavirya Arjuna and kills him. And not only him, but he kills a lot of other Kshatriyas around the world. And it is said that he did this 21 times because he was so angry with the Kshatriya, the whole community. He said they have become so arrogant. They're supposed to uphold dharma, but they're going around killing innocent people like my father. So they don't deserve to live. He kills Kshatriyas mercilessly, and he's so powerful, he becomes very feared among the Kshatriyas. But he doesn't touch the kings of the Ikshvaku dynasty. The Ikshvaku Vamsha is the Surya Vamsha, in which Surya Bhagavan is the originator. And Sri Ramachandra appears in that dynasty also. So he doesn't touch that dynasty. He considers them to be very pure and above the other Kshatriyas. So this is a very famous narrative that's often told. In the Ramayana, Parashurama appears just after Sita's marriage with Sri Ram. And the marriage procession is returning to Ayodhya from Mithila, going to Ayodhya from Mithila. At that time on the way, Parashurama appears there in between, and he challenges Sri Rama. He says, if you are really smart, because after all, he's also a Kshatriya. So he offers him a friendly challenge, and he says, if you are qualified enough, then please string this bow, this saranga. Saranga is the bow of Vishnu, and that is now in the possession of Parashurama. But Sri Rama himself is Vishnu. So for him, it's no big deal to string that bow, and he strings it, and Parashurama is defeated. He is defeated, and he accepts defeat, and he says that you are more powerful than me. And he goes to Mahendragiri, it is said after that. So this is in the Balakanda of Ramayana, right? In the very first Kanda of Ramayana, in the last 3 chapters of the Balakanda. And after that, the Ayodhya Kanda begins. Then in the Mahabharata, we already heard this in the stories, in the narratives of Bhishma, where Amba, okay, sometimes they say that the women are the cause for fight between men. On a humorous side, I said that. So Amba, she is now desperate to take revenge on Bhishma, and she doesn't know what to do. So somebody gives her an idea. Why don't you connect with Parashuram and see if he can help? So she goes to him and he takes up the challenge. He says, Bhishma is after all my disciple. I will order him to, take care of you. You go and he will accept you in his family. So when Parashuram actually does that, Bhishma doesn't accept. And Bhishma points out to him that I have taken a vow. I can't marry her, obviously, but I can't accept her in the family simply because there's a rule for Kshatriyas that if it is known that the woman already has given her heart to another man, then Kshatriya Dharma forbids a man to accept that woman as his wife. So even if she is willing to marry my brother, Vichitravirya, like the other two sisters have married or probably getting ready to marry, I cannot accept her for him. He will not accept also. Kshatriya Dharma prohibits him from accepting Amba. So therefore, I'm sorry, we can't follow that instruction of yours. Although I accept you as my guru, he respects him. It's with a lot of respect he says all this, not arrogantly. And that angers Parashurama. He's unwilling to accept that explanation. And so he challenges Bhishma to a war. He says, you fight with me. Bhishma says, yes, I will fight with you. And they go to Kurukshetra. From Hastinapur, they go to Kurukshetra. So that's a battle in Kurukshetra before this Yuddha begins, the later one. So they fight for several days and Parashurama is unable to defeat Bhishma. Bhishma finally deploys a weapon which knocks Parashurama down, and Bhishma himself is completely, beaten by the war that has happened. Both of them are dead tired, and then they decide to stop. Parashurama first stops. He says, I will stop. Now you also stop. They both decide to stop, and then they embrace each other. And that is how that also ends. Now, Parashurama is also known in India for reclaiming land south of a certain point. It is said that certain parts of South India, current South India, and Southwest India, the western coast of India, southwestern coast, below Goa, all the way till Kanyakumari, was reclaimed by him. Below that, before him, that was under the sea. And he threw his axe or some weapon, and then that whole land opened up. So that is a whole narrative like that. So that whole land is called Parashurama Kshetra even today. In certain places, it's addressed by that term. And there are temples of Parashuram in that region of the country as well. And it is understood that he is a Chiranjeevi, means although he is not visible today, he is living, he is alive, and he stays in the Mahendra Parvata, which is in Odisha, someplace in Odisha. And this is also, Mahendra Parvata also appears in the story of Ramayana, in Ramayana, where that's a point where Hanuman takes off, right? When he's going to Lanka. So he takes off. It is said that he takes off from Mahendra Parvat, and people say that this is the place where it happened. Although there is a Mahendragiri in South India also. So it's not clear to me which one it is, but many people believe it is this one, the one in Odisha from where Hanuman took off. And there is some Hanuman temple there too, even today. So this is about Parashurama. And so going back to our shloka, Pavanav Pavatamasmi Ramaha Shastra Bhritamah. Among all the people who have weapons and who wield weapons, I am Parashuram, Sri Bhagavan says. Parashuram is his vibhuti. Jashanam Makaraschasmi. Jashaha means fish or a water creature. And among all the water creatures or fishes, I am the particular type of fish called as Makara. Okay, there's one species which is addressed in Sanskrit as Makara. Now, I tried to find which species of fish this is. Some people say it is a shark, but it's not clear. So there is an ambiguity on how this translates to an English name. So whatever it is some very attractive fish, large fish. We also describe, when you describe Vishnu, you say Vishnu has Makara Kundala, means his earrings, Vishnu's earrings are shaped like this Makara fish. Beautiful. Okay, so it is some very beautiful looking, very attractive looking fish. Srotasamasmi Jannavi. Srotaha. Srotas refers to an object which flows, a fluid. Okay, so among all things which flow or fluids, I am that river known as Jannavi. Okay, Jannavi refers to Mother Ganga. Okay, so I am Ganga. Among all the fluids or among all the objects which flow, I am Ganga. So we'll also hear about the tale of Ganga. And as we know, Ganga appeared on this earth. Actually, in our Shastra, there are different narratives on how she appeared on this earth. Okay, there's the most popular one is this one, where there was a king, again in the Ikshvaku dynasty, in Surya Vamsha, by name Sagara. So this Sagara Raja, He once performed an Ashwamedha Yajna. Ashwamedha Yajna is common among Kshatriyas because it is said that if you perform 100 Ashwamedha Yajnas, then in a future birth you will become Indra, the king of heaven. So it is also considered a matter of prestige to perform Ashwamedha Yajna. Just like for if an FPM scholar publishes an A-star paper or an FT50 paper, then it would be big thing, right? You would be famous for that. You would get an award. The institute will reward you that, wow, you've done something great. So Ashwamedha Yajna is a activity of prestige among the Kshatriyas. Oh, so-and-so, he has conducted an Ashwamedha Yajna. Even bigger than Ashwamedha is what is called the Rajasuya Yajna, which we hear people like Yudhishthira doing in the Mahabharata. So 100 Ashwamedha Yajnas is considered a phenomenal goal, like writing 100 FT50 papers. It's a big thing, right? If somebody does that, then he's a big personality. So now, in this Ashwamedha Yajna, the Indra, the person who is currently the Indra, his name is Purandara. So there is a common thing which reoccurs. Whenever a king on earth performs Ashwamedha Yajna, that Indra feels threatened. That someday this person may perform 100 and then he may displace me before my term is over. He may become so powerful. So he comes and tries to fiddle with that. He does something to tamper with that yajna when it's happening. So what Indra does when Sagara is performing his Ashwamedha Yajna, he steals the horse. Okay, the Ashwamedha Yajna involves a horse being let loose. The horse has to go through different kingdoms. It just goes. And the soldiers of the king follow it. And then wherever it goes, the king there can challenge there's a war and so on. So the horse which is being sent now for this Ashwamedha Yajna, Indra comes and steals it and goes away. And nobody knows that he has stolen it. So what Sagara does, he has 60,000 sons. So he sends them in search of the horse. The horse is missing. Nobody knows where it's gone. So they search everywhere and they finally reach the ashram of a sage by name Kapila. Okay, Kapila also appears in the 10th chapter we heard earlier. Siddhanam Kapilo Munihi, Sri Bhagavan says. Kapila is also believed to be an avatar of Vishnu himself. So he's a very peaceful sage, he's a philosopher. He gives the Sankhya philosophy. So in his ashram, these sons of Sagara, they find that horse has been tied to a tree in some part of the ashram. So when they go there, the sage is sitting in complete dhyan. He's in samadhi. He's not aware of what's happening around him. And the horse is there. Maybe he didn't even know the horse came. Somebody came and tied. Maybe Indra came and tied it there and went. But these people find it there and they think that Kapila has stolen the horse. And now he's pretending to be in meditation. So they go rudely and they disturb him. And they behave with him as if he's a thief. They start accusing him and they demand, why did you steal this horse and this and that? So he gets very angry with them for that behavior and he opens his eyes and he burns them down. So they are just burned to ashes. So they burn to ashes and it's a big tragedy. So the next generation, the king Anshuman. So Sagara is helpless. Sagara now doesn't know what to do and he passes away. But his grandson, the son of one of these 60,000 sons, Anshuman, so he takes the responsibility that I will go and try to deliver my fathers. I will try to release them from that curse. They've become ashes. Let me see how I can bring them out. So he goes there to Kapila Muni's ashram. He apologizes to the sage for the mistake that his fathers have made. And he brings the horse back to the kingdom. So that story gets closed. But still the ancestors are as they are. So he's unsuccessful. He doesn't know what to do to save his uncles. So he passes on the responsibility to his own son by name Dilipa. So the Raja Dilipa, he also tries, some method by which his grandfathers can be taken out of that condition in which they are suffering. But he also is unsuccessful. So Dilipa then eventually has a son by name Bhagiratha. And Bhagiratha takes the responsibility. And Bhagiratha performs very severe penance. He gives up the throne. He tells his ministers, you please take care of my throne. And I want to focus on only one objective. And that is to release my father. It's already now 4 generations. I'm in the 4th generation from them. And they are lying there suffering. So I want to release them from that condition. Please take care of my kingdom. So he goes somewhere and he performs penance. He sits in tapasya for a very long time. And at the end of this, Sri Brahma appears to him. And Brahma says, what do you want? He says, this is what I want. So Brahma advises him that you have to bring Mother Ganga. And she actually flows from the feet of Vishnu. And she doesn't exist here on this earth. So you have to bring her, and she is in the heavenly existence. So bring her from there, and she will come if you pray to her. So now she goes away, but Bhagirath now is thinking, how do I bring her? He finds out, he does some research, and he figures out that if she comes and falls here, if I bring her here, then the force with which she will fall, we won't be able to take it. This earth will not be able to take that force. It may get destroyed. She will come with a huge amount of force. So then he gets the idea that Shiva, he has the power to withstand that force, and let me take his help. So once again, he starts a new penance. He performs penance, meditates on Shiva, and Shiva appears before him. He asks for that boon. He asks for that help, and Shiva agrees to help. Shiva is very kind. He's called Ashutosha, because he's very easy to please. With some penance, if you are honest and sincere, he is pleased, and he immediately blesses that person. So he blesses him. He says, I will do what you want. And he stands, and then Ganga is brought from Swarga. It is said that Ganga actually came into this universe when Sri Bhagavan appeared as Vamana. When he appeared as Vamana, and he had that very interesting Leela with Maharaj Bali. He conquered, with his 3 footsteps, or 2 of the footsteps, he conquered all the 3 worlds, right? So when one of his footsteps was on the upper region, the upper planetary systems, his toe, it said, ruptured the covering of this universe. And through that, Mother Ganga entered here. She is outside this universe. So she entered this universe, and now she is going to come on earth. And Shiva, Mahadeva, he stands there, and he takes the force on his head, and he holds it because of his power. He holds the entire Ganga in his locks on top. And then slowly he releases her from locks, right? So today we see so many depictions of Shiva with Mother Ganga coming out of his locks, out of his head. And so then Ganga starts flowing. Now she's much, much less forceful than she was when she first came inside. She's flowing from the Himalaya, and she's going down. And as she's going down, she enters the ashram of a sage by name Jannu. There's a sage called Jannu, and he's sitting in tapasya there, and she enters his ashram, and she's creating havoc there as she's flowing through the ashram. So he looks at her and says, who are you to disturb me like this? You're causing a nuisance in this ashram. So he takes her inside with his power, his mystic potency. He takes her inside and holds her inside. He's strapped. She's strapped inside his body. So then Bhagiratha's job is now obstructed, because she has to now flow. The point is that she has to flow to the place where his ancestors' ashes are lying. And she has to flow over them. Only then will they get their liberation. They'll get delivered from that thing, and they'll go to Swarga Loka. So he goes to Jannu along with his ministers and others, and he prays to him that please release her. This is the reason she has come here, and our intention was not to disturb you. We are sorry for what happened, but please release her. And so Jannu very kindly agrees to that, and she comes out of his left ear. He releases her from his left ear. So she is understood to be his daughter because she came out of his body. So she is also named as Jannavi. She gets the name Jannavi. And Jannavi in Sanskrit is a derivation of the expansion of Jannu. So Jannoho apatyam stri. Jannoho apatyam stri, or Jannoho apatyam duhita will be Jannavi, daughter of Jannu. Okay, so that's why Ganga is also called Jannavi. And she's also called Bhagirathi. Bhagirathi because Bhagiratha brought her here. She is Bhagiratha's, product. She is like Bhagiratha's, in some sense, like his daughter also. So he brought her here, and he introduced her to this world. So she is Bhagirathi. So these are all the different names of Mother Ganga, and she is probably the most sought after person in our religion, in Hinduism. Those who follow the Veda respect Mother Ganga just like they respect Vishnu, because she flows from the feet of Vishnu. So going back to the shloka, Srotasamasmi Jannavi, the daughter of Jannu. So Sri Bhagavan has covered 4 of his vibhutis here. Pavanav Pavatamasmi Ramaha Shastra Bhritamaham. Pavanaha Pavatamasmi Rama Shastra Bhritamaham. Jashanam Makaraschasmi Srotasamasmi Jannavi. Among the purifiers, I am the air. Among those who possess weapons, I am Parashurama. Among the fishes, I am the sea-dwelling fish known as Makara, and among the things that flow, I am Ganga or Jannavi. So with this one shloka for today from the Gita, we will go to the story of Bhishma, who is the son of Mother Jannavi, right? Who is the son of Ganga, and who also had also a disciple of Parashurama. So the Bhishma is connected in two ways to this shloka as well. So we have now reached the last episode of the Bhishma Leela or Bhishma story. And in the last episode, we heard about how Bhishma in the Kurukshetra war, finally, after all the havoc he created in the Pandava army, himself decided that now enough is enough. The time has come for me to go. And just the previous night, the night of day 9 of the war, he had advised the Pandavas how they can defeat him, how they can knock him down. So they followed his advice and he accepted willingly to get knocked down. So he gets knocked down, he falls down, and he falls on his back. His entire body is covered with arrows. Everywhere there are Arjuna's arrows are covering him. And there is not enough space to put 2 fingers width. That many arrows are covering him from top to bottom. In that condition, he falls down. So he's lying on a bed of arrows on that battlefield. And so after he falls, he decides, he makes up his mind that he can leave at that time itself. But he says, now Dakshinayana is going on. I will not leave my body in the Dakshinayana time, and I will leave only in Uttarayana. So he says, I'll wait for Uttarayana, and during that time that I'm waiting, I will chant Om. Okay, so what is meant by Dakshinayana and Uttarayana, and why does he want to wait for Uttarayana to come? So we'll go a little bit into this theory. Dakshinayana and Uttarayana, I'm sure most of you understand what it is. It is simply this, the way in which the earth is moving around the sun. So this is also in conformity with Western astronomy. Western astronomy and our astronomy, they match in many of these things. So when the earth is moving around the sun on its orbit, because of its tilt, what happens is with respect to the earth, the sun's position is not always the same. It moves up and down on that plane, right? So sometimes the sun seems to be directly above the equator. And after some time, it's moving downwards from the equator downwards till what is called as the Tropic of Capricorn. And after that, it turns upwards and it moves, again, it comes back to the equator and then moves towards the Tropic of Cancer. 3rd week of June 20th or so is summer solstice. That's when it reaches the topmost point. Okay, that's the end of Uttarayana. And then it starts moving down. And it begins at Dakshinayana. Dakshinayana means the southward movement. And around December 20th, it reaches the Tropic of Capricorn. Okay, so when this happened, those days, the dates which I'm telling you now, December 20th, January 20th, the June 20th and so on, those dates were different at that point of time. When Uttarayan began, Dakshinayana began. And that's because of what is called as Ayanamsha, or in Western astronomy, it's called precession. It's because the way in which the earth is moving around the sun, there is a wobbling movement. The earth also wobbles. And that wobbling movement causes these dates to change. Okay, over a long period of time, those dates also change. Okay, now coming back to the story, why should Uttarayana, why is so important for Bhishma to wait for Uttarayana? So this we will go to the Bhagavad-gita. In the 8th chapter of Bhagavad-gita, I'll revise some concepts which we have covered earlier, and then I'll come to this point about Uttarayana. So, in the 8th chapter of the Gita, Sri Bhagavan explains the connection between our mental state at the time of death and the destination that we achieve after death. Okay, so he says, Antakale cha mameva smaran muktva kalevaram yaf prayati samadbhavam yati nastyatra samshaya. At the time of death, Antakale, one who thinks about me, mameva, means only me, and gives up his body, such a person will reach my existence, madbhavam. And there is no doubt in this. More generally speaking, yam yam vapi smaran bhavam tyajatyante kalevaram tam tameva iti kaunteya sada tadbhava bhavita. Generalization of what he said. That whatever you think of at the time of death, that state of existence you will attain after your death. If you think of him, you will go to him. But if you think of anything else, suppose you're thinking of some wild animals at that point of time, then you're likely to be born among wild animals in next birth. That's the point he's trying to make. And then he says to Arjuna, Tasmat sarveshu kaleshu ma manusmara yudhyacha. Mai arpita mano buddhihi ma me vaishyasi asamshayaha. Says, therefore, putting the first two shlokas together, the conclusion is always think about me, ma manusmara. Think about me and yudhya. Think about me and do your fighting. Or more generally, do your duty. Whatever you're doing, always think about me as you're doing your duty. Offer your mind and intelligence to me. Let your mind and intelligence always be based in me. If you do that, then definitely you will come to me. Okay, that's the assurance he's giving. So after saying this, now these shlokas actually are the basis of some elements in the practice of Bhakti Yoga. In Bhakti Yoga, it's understood that the Bhakta is one who always thinks of Bhagavan, and his mind is based on, his intelligence is based on what Bhagavan likes. What Sri Bhagavan does not like, I will not do. What he likes, I will do. Live my life in a manner that is pleasing to him. Okay, this is Bhakti. And so all the time, if I think of Bhagavan, then I don't have to worry about thinking about him at the time of death, because my mind and intelligence are trained to always think about him. It's only natural that when death comes to me, I can't think of anything other than him. I'll only think about him, right? This is Bhakti. But this is not the process that all yogis follow. So there's also the process of Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, and Ashtanga Yoga. In Ashtanga Yoga, the yogi who begins this path typically does Karma Yoga in the beginning and then goes into a state of Jnana, contemplation, or may not go into Jnana, but go into Dhyan, where he says that I will now try to fix my mind upon that supreme reality, that supreme Brahman, that Bhagavan. Okay. But eventually, at the time of leaving his body, he has to connect with Bhagavan in bhakti, because without bhakti, if there is no feeling of bhakti towards Bhagavan, then mukti is not possible. You cannot reach a stage where you actually attain him. Only bhakti is the bond which connects the jivatma with Bhagavan. Without bhakti, the relationship is only transactional. Okay, so here, Sri Bhagavan in the 8th chapter itself, after a couple of more shlokas, he says, how a Ashtanga yogi, the methodology the Ashtanga yogi follows. Prayana kale manasa chalena bhaktya yukto yoga balena chaiva bhuvor madhye pranam aveshya samyak satam param purusham upaiti divyam. Says prayana kale, at the time of death, manasa achalena, with a mind which is unwavering mind, bhaktya, with bhakti, yuktaha, endowed with bhakti, yoga balena, with the strength of yoga, along with the strength of the yoga that he has been doing through all the 8 stages of yoga. Now he's in the last stage, samadhi. And with the strength that he has gathered, and with bhakti, bhaktya yuktaha yoga balena chaiva, bruvor madhye, bruvaha in Sanskrit, bruhu means the eyebrow. English bro, in Sanskrit bruhu. Very similar words, right? Bruvor madhya, in between the eyebrows, pranam aveshya samyak. All the prana is brought in between the eyebrows. Samyak means completely. Satam param purusham upaiti divyam. If a person does that and then leaves his body, then he attains that supreme person, which is Bhagavan, Krishna. So here Sri Bhagavan is speaking about himself in third person. He's referring to Purusha, means himself, as if it's somebody else in third person. Then he says, Sarvadvarani Sanyamya Manohridi Nirudhyacha Murthnya Adhaya Atmanav Pranam Asthito Yoga Dharanam Om Ityekaksharam Brahma. Om Ityekaksharam Brahma Vyaharan Ma Manusmaran Yaf Prayati Tyajandeham Sayati Paramam Gatin. Sarvadvarani Sanyamya means closing all the gates of the body. Dwaram means gate or door. There are 9 gates in this body, right? So the 2 nostrils, the 2 ear holes, the 2 eyes, then our genitals, anus, the mouth. Let me count the 9 again. The mouth, the 2 nostrils, the genitals and anus, that becomes 5, right? Yeah, so 2 ears and 2 eyes, that becomes 9, correct. So I'm on dot. So these 9 dwaras, Navadvarani, Sanyamya, you shut them, close them. Okay, no interaction with the outside world will happen at that point of time through any of these gates. Mano Hridi Nirudhyacha, hold the mind in the consciousness. Completely the mind is absorbed in one's consciousness. Hridi literally means in the heart, But the heart is the place where the consciousness resides. So pull the mind into one's consciousness. Completely one is conscious, very high level of consciousness. Murdhnya adhaya atmanah pranam. Murdhni means this forehead or the top portion of the head, top portion of the skull. So the whole prana is taken and concentrated here. Murdhnya adhaya atmanah pranam astitaha yoga dharanam. That is dharana, means you hold the prana there. Om ityekaksharam brahma vyaharanna mamanusmaran. Repeatedly chanting Om. Om iti ekaksharam brahma. Om is also called ekakshara brahma. It is just one akshara, Om. So Om, chanting that Om again and again and again, and understanding with the understanding that Om represents Brahma. Ma manusmaran, thinking of me, Krishna. Thinking of me, Krishna. Chanting Om and thinking of me. Yaf prayati tyajandeham. At that point, in that condition of mind, okay, entire prana is concentrated here. Person is chanting Om. His full consciousness is now residing here. And he then, with this yoga bala, he leaves the body. This is what the yogi does. And he then goes. Sayati paramam gatim. He will not take birth again. He will not have this material body again. This is the approach to mukti that the Ashtanga yogis take. This is not the approach that the Bhakti yogis take. Bhakti yogas won't sit and do all this. Okay, they won't worry about chanting Om, etc. Because they're anyway thinking of Bhagavan all the time. Their life, from top to bottom, morning to evening, even when they are sleeping, where it is said that in Bhakti, all the three states, Jagrati, Swapna, Sushupti, in all three states, one thinks of Bhagavan. And one is thinking of seva to Bhagavan, not just thinking about him, but thinking of what can I do to please him? How can he be happy with my work, with my thinking, with my mental activity, my physical activity, everything. So for a Bhakti yogi, this process is not required. This methodology is not required. This is the methodology followed by the Ashtanga yogis. Okay, so in this methodology, why should Uttarayana feature? Okay, because again, in the same chapter, in the 8th chapter itself, which is focused predominantly on Ashtanga yoga, with contrasting, it's actually 8th chapter of Bhagavad-Gita contrasts Bhakti yoga with Ashtanga yoga. So here, in the 8th chapter, Sri Bhagavan says, Yatra kale tu anavrittim avrittim chaiva yoginaha prayata yanti tam kalam vakshyami Bharatarshaba. Now, O Bharatarshaba Arjuna, I'm going to tell you how a yogi who leaves his body can have two outcomes. There can be two outcomes of that leaving the body. One is you don't come back to this world again, or don't come back to this material existence and take a material body again. And the other outcome is you come back. You have another birth after some time. So I'm going to tell you that Agnir Jyotirah Shuklaha Shanmasa Uttarayanam Tatra Prayata Gachanti Brahma Brahma Vidojanaha. Says on the first path, on one of the paths, this happens when the deities of Agni Devata, or the deity of the Shukla Paksha, the deity of the period known as Uttarayana, when they are predominant, a person who has understood Brahman, when he leaves his body at this point of time and these deities are predominating, he will get mukti. He will not come back again. In contrast to this, Dhumo Ratristata Krishna Shanmasa Dakshinayanam Tatra Chandramasam Jyotihi Yogi Prapya Nivartate. So, those who leave their body during Dakshinayana, those who are leaving the body in the night time in Dakshinayana, and when the deity of the smoke is predominating, unlike the person who lives in Uttarayana, when the deity of fire is predominating, or when the deity of Shukla Paksha is predominating. Okay, so he says the people who live like this in the second category, what happens to them? They will go to Tatra Chandramasam Jyotihi. Chandramasam Jyotihi refers to Swargaloka. They go to Swargaloka. They live in Swargaloka for a long period of time. They enjoy the pleasures of Swargaloka. But Nivartate means he will come back again to this human life. Will take birth again as a human being. So there are two paths, and he says that Shukla Krishne Gati Hyete Jagataha Shashvate Mate Ekaya Yatyanavrittim Anyaya Avartate Punaha. So there are two paths. I have summarized this. Shukla and Krishna. The first path is called Shukla and the second path is called Krishna. Bright and dark. Those who go by the bright path will not come back, will get mukti. And those who don't go by that but go by the dark path will come back and take birth again. Okay, so now let's go back to the Bhishma story. Bhishma is following the methodology of the Ashtanga yogis. He's not following the methodology taken by the Bhakti yogis, although he could have, because he's also a Bhakta. But he takes this path maybe for demonstrating to others that this path is also available, and he is very powerful. Bhishma, he's got that power to follow the path of the Ashtanga yogis. So he lies there on the Sharashaya and he says, I will wait for Uttarayan to come and I'll chant Om. Okay, we heard that. The yogi chants Om. His mind is fully absorbed in the chanting of the Om. So he's chanting Om. So he makes up his mind immediately after he falls down and he starts chanting Om. He starts pulling his consciousness, the prana inside. Okay. Now to give you a little bit of gyan on pulling this prana inside, what is meant by prana? Prana in this colloquial language, the way we use it colloquially, refers to just our breath. But prana is not just breath. It's much more than breath. It's actually what can be, it's very difficult to translate in English. Many of these Sanskrit words and concepts, like the way the professor was pointing out a few days back in our seminar also. Many Sanskrit words are such that, and the concepts are such that they cannot be immediately translated to English because there's no equivalent concept in English. Anyway, so the understanding is that it is some kind of universal energy, prana, which resides with the material body of the living being. When a living being, a jivatma, takes a material body, this universal energy also is a part of that body. It comes into the body to help the bodily functions to happen, all the different bodily functions to happen. So prana appears as 5 mukhya pranas and 5 upapranas. The 5 mukhya pranas are known as prana, apana, samana, vyana, and udana. These are 5 mukhya pranas. Okay, and the 5 upapranas are called Naga, Kurma, Krikara, Devadatta, and Dhananjaya. The 5 names of the 5 upapranas. So to give you a very brief explanation for what these 10 pranas do, the 5 mukhya pranas, for example, the prana known as prana. So first of the 5 is also known as prana itself. And that prana is responsible for our respiratory system. It's connected to the respiratory system, the respiration, the lungs, the movement of the lungs, the air going inside and outside. Okay, so that's the first one. So prana controls and helps us to move the respiration properly. Now, if that prana is not functioning properly, then our respiratory system is flawed. Okay, for example, somebody who is a chain smoker, let's say, their lungs are all clogged, right? So they've actually tampered with that respiratory system by smoking. As a result of which, the functioning of that prana becomes improper, and that leads to disease. Okay, then the second one, let's say udana. Okay, udana is the one of the pranas which is responsible for our nervous system, the central nervous system. Likewise, samana. Samana is responsible for our digestive system. Okay, apana. Apana vayu is the downward moving vayu or downward moving prana. It's responsible for our excretory system, urination, passing of stool, etc. Menstruation for women. The apana vayu plays a role there. And finally, vyana. Vyana vayu is all over the body, the skin, all the different parts of the body, the circulatory system, everything comes from the vyana. So this way, the 5 mukhya pranas, similarly the 5 upapranas like naga. Naga is associated with, I think, belching, burping. Kurma is blinking of the eyelids. Krikara is, if I recollect correctly, has to do with yawning. One of them is yawning. Similarly, Devadatta, Dhananjaya. Okay, so they all have different supporting functions to these major systems, the 5 major systems that I just said. So pulling the prana inside means basically stopping the functions of the pranas. The yogis are able to do that. Now, through pranayam, what is taught as pranayam today's pranayam, helps us to primarily control the first one called prana, regulates the movement of breath into our lungs, inside, outside. And just by doing that, we experience a significant improvement in our concentration, freedom from stress, right? Improvement in the calmness of the mind, a sense of goodness, etc. Just by controlling that prana. So if we do it even better, those days yogis used to control all the 5 pranas. So they could control the health of their body and make their body absolutely robust for practicing dhyan. So they could practice dhyan for months together, years together without getting disturbed, because they could, the help of the prana, they could bring their body to that stage of fitness. The bodily fitness is of that level that they can sit for hours together, for weeks together, months together, years together, right? So Bhishma is now doing that. He's controlling his pran, he's pulling his pran up, and he's now going to lie on the Sharashaya for a long time till Uttarayana begins. So shortly thereafter, we heard this in the last class too. Arjuna arranges a pillow to support Bhishma's head by shooting 3 arrows into the ground, and Bhishma is very happy with that. Then immediately after that, the Vaidyas come. There are Vaidyas who observe. They're always available on the side of the battlefield. When the battle stops, they come and they help the warriors to overcome their wounds and injuries, and they give them some ointment and they cure them. So the Vaidyas come rushing and they start pulling out the arrows from his body, and Bhishma stops them. He says, no, that's below a Kshatriya standards. I'm a Kshatriya and these arrows are my pride. I've taken them in my body and they will remain with me, and I will be cremated with these arrows on my body. So he calls Duryodhana for this job and he says, send these people away. Okay, so Duryodhana sends the Vaidyas away. Duryodhana is good at sending people away, right? Arjuna arranges water. So next day, this happens the next day morning. The whole night has passed now. And next day morning, the Kauravas are very depressed because their main warrior is now gone. The Pandavas are celebrating because they know that now victory is inevitable. And so Bhishma tells the warriors that I'm feeling a little thirsty. Can you please arrange some water for me? And so everybody runs. They all bring water. They all bring the best water available around them because they want to make him happy. But he rejects them. He says, no, this is not what I wanted. Then he turns to Arjuna again. He says, Arjuna, please arrange water for me. So Arjuna is able to read his mind. He says, I will arrange. And he again takes one more arrow. He chants a mantra to his Gandiva and he shoots the arrow into the ground. And immediately his mother, Bhishma's mother, Ganga, appears there. And she goes into his mouth. And Bhishma's thirst is quenched. And Bhishma is again very happy with Arjuna. So Bhishma then, in the presence of everybody, in everybody's presence, he turns to Duryodhana and he says, now at least please stop fighting. Enough. I've told you many times before that you should not have a war with the Pandavas. You should give them the kingdom and don't do this. But now I'm again telling you, I'm leaving now. I'm not going to be in this war and there is no hope for you. You cannot defeat Arjuna. Arjuna cannot be defeated. But he's saying this to Duryodhana in front of Arjuna and all the others. And he tells him, please make peace with them and let the world live happily. If you just fight, you will get killed and all the others also will get killed. Let them go. So Duryodhana politely listens to everything. And this chapter concludes. The chapter concludes with the last loka explaining that Duryodhana heard everything and he was very displeased. He didn't like a word of what Bhishma told him. And he did not believe that what Bhishma said will happen. So after this, the last chapter of the Bhishma Parva, in which the Kurukshetra wars, first 10 days are described. Bhishma is visited by Karna alone. When all the others have gone, Karna is not there at that time. And when it is just quiet and only when Bhishma is alone, Karna comes there to see him. And Karna and Bhishma embrace each other. Bhishma embraces him. And with a lot of affection, Bhishma speaks to him, and Karna also is very respectful to Bhishma. We should now recollect that before the war, Bhishma did not approve Karna. Repeatedly, he disapproved Karna's character, and he said Karna is responsible, has a role in, doing this, going and sending Duryodhana down the wrong path. He's supporting him, and so he says Karna is useless. Don't depend on him. He tells Duryodhana again and again. And Karna is very insulted. Karna says that I will not fight in this war until Bhishma is there. Only after Bhishma dies, I will fight this war. So now at this point of time, Bhishma is lying there and they embrace each other and there's a lot of affectionate interaction with them. And here Bhishma advises Karna that please, understand that you are the son of Kunti and you should be with the Pandavas, not with the Kauravas. So don't support Duryodhana. And you will not be able to fight Arjuna. You think too much of yourself. You think that you have the ability. I know that you are powerful, you are very skilled, etc. You have been trained by Parashurama. Okay, Parashurama has been the guru of Bhishma, Drona, and Karna, three big personalities. Okay, that is Parashurama status. And so he says, I know all this, but you will still not be able to defeat Arjuna. Don't even entertain that thought in your mind. So Karna listens to him, but unlike Duryodhana, he responds to him. And he says, I respect your advice, but I don't agree with you. I beg to differ, like we say today, right? You politely listen to your teacher and then you say, sir, I beg to differ with you. I have a different opinion on this. So he says that I believe that I can defeat all the five Pandavas. So I will continue to fight this war and I will defeat all of them. And he says that even if Duryodhana, I know that Duryodhana can't fight without my help. And as a goodwill to him, I want him to get killed here because I know that if he gets killed in this war rather than get killed somewhere else, if he gets killed in a war, then he will get Swarga. Because anybody who fights a Dharma Yuddha, whether he is on this side or that side, if he gets killed in the war, then he gets Swarga. That's a reward, right? Like in a cricket match or a football match, all the players, whether they lose the match or they win the match, they will get their payment for the match, right? They'll get their money like that. So all the warriors anyway will get Swarga who get killed there. So I want Duryodhana to get Swarga and get killed here for that purpose. So I'm fighting here, I'm supporting him, but I will defeat the Pandavas, he says. So after this, shortly after this, the Mahabharata goes into many other parvas. So the Bhishma Parva is the sixth parva of the Mahabharata. And then there is Drona Parva, Shalya Parva, and so on. And 4 or 5 parvas later is the Shanti Parva, which is the 12th parva of the Mahabharata. Mahabharata has 18 parvas in all. The Shanti Parva is the biggest parva of the Mahabharata. The Mahabharata has 2000 and something like 2020 chapters. Okay, this is the number of chapters in the Gita Press edition of the Mahabharata. Gita Press has published a full Mahabharata, all the 100,000 shlokas in 2020 chapters. And out of those 2020 chapters, the Shanti Parva is the biggest one. It has 365 chapters. And after Shanti Parva is the Anushasana Parva. And the Anushasana Parva has 168 chapters. So together, adding them up, it comes to 533 chapters out of 2020. That is about 1/4, a little more than 1/4. And the reason I'm saying all this is because these two parvas of the Mahabharata are filled predominantly with Bhishma speaking to different people, one of them being Yudhishthira, and giving discourses on dharma. That is the level of importance that Bhishma has in the Mahabharata. He's the most dominant personality of the entire Mahabharata. And 2 full parvas are dedicated just to his discourses. In between, other conversations also happen, but his discourses dominate the 2 parvas. Okay? And included in this is the famous Vishnu Sahasranama that is spoken by Bhishma. The Vishnu Sahasranama was spoken by Bhishma to Yudhishthira, in which he chants, because when Yudhishthira asks him what is the supreme dharma, he says, chanting the names of Vishnu is the supreme dharma. And he says, now I'll tell you what to chant. And he chants the 1,000 names of Vishnu, one after the other. And in the Gita Press edition, which I have with me, and I can share with you if you like, those 1,000 are also numbered. That's very interesting. They've numbered these 1,000 names. In each shloka, there are about 10 to 11 names. So which means this spans about 80 to 100 shlokas. And they have put 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way to 1,000. And after this is over, so all this is happening, and this is happening when Bhishma is lying on the Sharashaya. So the occurrings of Shanti Parva and Anushasana Parva, and at the end of Anushasana Parva, we are now coming to the end of the Anushasana Parva, the 13th Parva of Mahabharata, Yudhishthira arrives there. And Yudhishthira arrives when Uttarayana begins. About 50 days have passed since Bhishma fell. And after 50 days, Uttarayana has started. And Yudhishthira says, now it's time to go. Already before this itself, he has sent all the materials for Bhishma's cremation, okay, to do that. And he begins now. He goes from Hastinapura to Kurukshetra. He is accompanied by Krishna. Krishna is with him. His brothers are with him. Dhritarashtra is with him. Kunti is with him. And Mother Gandhari is also with him. They all go there. And they find all the great sages like Vyasa, Narada. They're all surrounding Bhishma and they're waiting for this moment. So what are Bhishma's last words and how does he leave his body? These are very famous words, and this is both in the Mahabharata and the Bhagavatam. I am reading the words that are recorded in the Bhagavatam. The Mahabharata has different shlokas. So in the Bhagavatam, the Pratama Skanda of Bhagavatam, the Navama Adhyaya, the 9th chapter of the first Skanda of Bhagavatam, Bhishma is now about to leave his body, and at that time he gives his final words. He tells Yudhishthira that, you are in charge of dharma now, you're going to follow. And then he turns to Krishna and he says, I'm so blessed that Krishna is present before me when I'm leaving my body. And he starts praising Krishna. He says that he's Swayam Bhagavan himself who's come in our midst, and he's everything in existence is Bhagavan. There's nothing other than him. And there are so many shlokas where he describes, and two of the shlokas is what I'm going to now show you. And this is where you can see Bhishma's deep nostalgia of his interaction with Bhagavan during the Kurukshetra war. With so much affection, he recalls these two moments. He says, Swanigamam apahaya, mat pratigyam ritam adhikartum, adhikartum avapluto ratastaha, Swanigamam apahaya mat pratigyam ritam adhikartum avapluto ratastaha, dhritarata charano abhyayat dhritarata charano abhyayat chaladguhu haririva hantum ibham gatottariyaha. Swanigamam apahaya mat pratigyam ritam adhikartum avapluto ratastaha dhritarata charano abhyayat chaladguhu haririva hantum ibham gatottariyaha. So he's saying that I remember so vividly that scene in which, in order to uphold my promise, he gave up his own promise. Swanigamam apahaya, he gave up his own promise, mat pratigyam ritam adhikartum, to make my promise true. So what is this referring to? His promise, Bhishma's promise, apparently, was that tomorrow morning, this was apparently made on the evening of day 8, when the Kauravas go to Bhishma and they try to say that, you're not fighting enough. We want to displace you. We want to substitute you with Karna. So Bhishma makes a promise that I will tomorrow make Krishna take up his arms, take up his weapons. Okay, so now Krishna already has made a promise that I will not fight in the Kurukshetra war. But still, on day 9 of the war, Krishna gets down from his chariot. So he says, Adhikartum avaplutaha ratastaha. He was on the chariot with Arjuna, but to make my promise come true, he gets down from the chariot and he rushes towards me. And how does he rush towards me? Dhritarata charanaha. He picked up the wheel of a chariot. Okay, there was some broken wheel because the war is going on. So many chariots also are being destroyed. So some broken wheel was lying nearby. So he picks up a chariot wheel. In the Mahabharata, it's described that he invoked the Sudarshan Chakra. But here in the Bhagavatam, the reference is to a chariot wheel. So he picked up the chariot wheel and abhyayat chaladguhu, means he ran on the earth. Chaladguhu, chaladga refers to the earth. So chaladguhu means one who is, because of whom the earth is moving. The entire motion of the earth is coming from him. And he ran on that earth, abhyayat. And what did it look like? Haririva hantum ibham. Just like a lion springs on an elephant to kill the elephant. Okay, a lion is much smaller than the elephant, but it has no fear. It springs on the elephant to kill the elephant very courageously. So Krishna running towards Bhishma. Bhishma is standing there, a big warrior, and Krishna probably in that form is smaller in size. But he is rushing like a lion with a chariot wheel. I'm going to kill you with that pose. And in that process, Gatottariyaha, his garment, his upper garment. Okay, he's wearing a lower garment like this, Veshti. And on top, he's wearing some upper garment also, like a chadar. And the chadar fell off. Gatottariyaha means it fell down to the ground, but he didn't care. He was rushing towards me to kill me. So Bhishma recollects that very vividly. And then he says, Shita Vishika Hato Vidirna Vishirna Damshaha Shataja paripluta atatayino me prasabham abhisasara madvadhartham saha bhavatu me bhagavan gatir mukundaha. So he says, at that point of time, I was shita vishika hataha. Means, shita means um, sharp, very sharp, tikshna. Vishikaha means arrow. Hataha, struck. My body, my entire body was struck by sharp arrows. Vishirna damshaha means my armor, the armor that Kshatriyas wear, my armor was completely shattered by those arrows. Shataja pariplutaha, my body, my upper body was drenched in blood. Shatajam means blood. Pariplutaha, drenched in blood. Atatayino me, by my enemies, by the Pandavas, the people on the opposite side. They had caused this. The arrows, the sharp arrows that they sent had drenched my chest in blood. I was standing like that. Prasabham abhisasara madvadhartam. But even then, he rushed towards me to kill me, madvadhartam, to kill me. And may that form of Bhagavan, because we heard in the last session, when Bhagavan did this, how did Bhishma respond to it? Right? How did he respond? He responded by saying, please come. He lowered his arrow, he lowered his bow. Initially, he raised it and then he stands there. He doesn't shoot an arrow. He just stands there and he says, please come, Bhagavan. Please take me away. Take me away. Sabhavatu me Bhagavan gatir mukundaha. So may that Mukunda, may that form of Bhagavan always be in my mind, and may I attain that Mukunda. May I attain that Krishna. So now Bhishma is lying on the Sharashaya and he is looking at Bhagavan standing in front of him. Right there, Krishna is standing and he is recollecting that form that he saw several days back in the war, in the time of the war. With that fond memory, he recollects, and then with keeping that form of Bhagavan, and then he goes on talking about Bhagavan, his beauty. He describes his beauty, and the Bhagavatam has many, many more shlokas, which for want of time, I can't go through in a class like this. But you should read it and appreciate the way in which he describes him. And thinking of Bhagavan, he leaves his body. His prana leaves the body. Okay, and he attains him. The slight difference between the way Mahabharata describes the leaving of the body and the Bhagavatam describes. The Bhagavatam says that he came out of the body and they saw him going into the body of Krishna. And in the Mahabharata, it's described, they saw that prana coming out of the body, his head, and merging into space, into the Akash space. And either way, he leaves and his body becomes still. And shortly after that, the cremation happens and they cremate with all the ritual. They're all waiting for that. And with all the thing, the Pandavas, Yudhishthira, led by Yudhishthira and Vidura, they play the key role and they cremate him with full honors. And then they go to the river nearby. I think at Kurukshetra had Mother Saraswati. Saraswati flows by Kurukshetra at that point of time. She flowed at that point of time. And Mother Ganga appears there and she is lamenting. And her lamentation is the last portion of the Anushasana Parva in that chapter, where she's wailing in pain, in great pain. And her key, her lamentation is centered around the thinking that, my son was the most powerful human being on this earth, and he was the most noble among the Kshatriyas. There is no Kshatriya who had this level of dharma, who followed dharma like the way he followed. The kind of selflessness that he displayed. His whole life he lived for others. And there was not a single Kshatriya, even the Devas in heaven could not take him on. Even Indra, it is said again and again, Krishna himself says that even Indra cannot defeat him. He is so powerful. But his death had to come through Shikandi. And how can I, why is it that knowing this, I am sitting like this? My heart is not breaking. My heart is not shattering to pieces, even after knowing that such a great personality, my son, had to be killed by an ordinary warrior like Shikandi, a woman turned into a man. So she's lamenting, she's crying very pitifully. And then Krishna comes to her and he consoles her. And he says, Mother, please don't think that your son has got a bad death. He's got the most glorious form of death. He's actually gone to Swargaloka. And Shikandi was not the one who killed him. It is actually Arjuna who killed him, who was the instrument in his death, not Shikandi. It's Arjuna. And not only that, it was Bhishma himself, who decided. It was not that Arjuna actually knocked him down. It was Bhishma who decided that I will get knocked down. And then he got knocked down. So please know all this and become peaceful. So when Krishna speaks to her very calmingly, Krishna speaks in a very soothing and calming voice with very affectionate words to her. You must see those words in the Mahabharata original. And she becomes very calm. She becomes very peaceful, and she offers her respect to Krishna, and she goes back into the river. And with this, the Anushasana Parva ends. And with this, our narration of Bhishma also will end. That brings us to the end of Bhishma Lila. And Bhishma, to put in, in a nutshell, is a demonstration of a very core principle in our Samskriti. One of the shlokas that children are taught in our Samskriti, which you might have also learned, some of you who studied in Hindi medium. I don't know, English medium schools, I don't think teach all this, but Hindi medium children are more fortunate. They learn these kind of values. Paropakarartham idam shariram. Okay, paropakaraya vahanti nadyaha, paropakaraya duhanti gavaha, paropakaraya phalanti vrikshaha, paropakarartham idam shariram. The word paropakar is one of the most important words in our Samskriti. Paropakar means selflessness, living for the welfare of others, living for the happiness of other people. Happiness has a very paradoxical property that when we try to get happiness only for ourselves, it never comes to us. But when we say that I don't want happiness for myself, I want happiness for somebody else, I want happiness to go to somebody else, I don't want it for myself, then happiness comes running to us. Okay, this is a happiness paradox. And this is taught in our Samskriti, that paropakar is the best way. Selflessness is the best way to selfishness. Paropakarartham idam shariram. And Bhishma's life is a demonstration of this principle. Throughout his life, all the 11 episodes that we have been through, we see in every episode some act of paropakar that he's doing. Right? So I will stop with this, and I will be very happy to hear your answer to this question. And this question is something that we will start talking about today, in the remaining time we have today, and we will continue on in the next session too. I want you to, as an assignment, okay, it's an assignment in this course, that you should all try to answer this question. You've heard 11 episodes of Bhishma now, and it's also there in the video recording. If you haven't missed any session, then you can watch the recording. And you can try to identify what principles, what values, what kind of paradigms did Bhishma demonstrate in his life that we can practically adopt in today's society, in our life, the life that we are individually living as a teacher or as a student. You're all future teachers who are sitting before me today. So what kind of principles can you adopt? What can you do in your life which will make a big difference to you, a positive difference to you? Okay. And we can even write a book on this, or maybe at least a paper we can write. Those online?
Yes, sir. Pranam, sir. Nilesh this side. So
Pranam,
just one
yes.
thing.
Yeah.
When you said that Krishna is running towards Bhishma like a lion, was he himself referring as an elephant, or he was referring the earth as elephant?
He's referring to Bhishma himself as an elephant. Bhishma is referring to himself as an elephant, and Krishna as the lion running towards him.
Okay.
We are just 3 days away from Ram Navami, Sri Ram Navami, and today is a Hanuman Jayanti also. It's Hanuman Jayanti, I thought was Chaitra Purnima.
Today is celebrated.
Today is celebrated by some people as Hanuman Jayanti also. Okay. Actually,
Sankranti or Sankranti is today. Hanuman Jayanti was the start from Monday onwards. Today it is celebrated.
okay. In one of the traditions, Hanuman Jayanti is observed on Chaitra Purnima. So now Chaitra Shukla Paksha is going on, and today must be, because Navami is 3 days from here, so it must be Sashti today, I think.
So today is also the like new year of
Yeah.
several states.
Yeah, that is not by the Chaitra Mas. That is by the Shauramana calendar.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes. So
that is April 14th. Yeah, yeah. So on Ram Navami day also, I was planning to have a session where we can listen to some narrative from Ramayana about some Leela that Sri Ram performed or Hanuman performed. So I will send you a mail. I'll make up my mind and send you a mail on this. And if you're free on that evening, please join the session.
This is Bhaskar here. Can I ask a question, sir?
Yes, Bhaskar, please.
So first of all, I was enamored by the way you explained this entire thing. This is my first session wherein I have sat through this discourse. Sir, I particularly picked up on one sentence that you said, right? In between somewhere you said that in the Dharma Yudh, right? People on both sides of the Dharma Yudh, they end up going to heaven.
Yeah.
Right, is what sometime. So, sir, I was trying to draw an analogy in terms of what's happening around us, right, in the world all over.
Yeah.
Right? And we talk about terrorism so much. And what we also get to hear, this at least what I have read, I don't know whether that's true or not. The people on the other side, the terrorists, they also feel that they are on the right side of the law or the duty.
Yeah.
So does it mean that, irrespective of whether, I mean, is it that from which side are you seeing what is right, what is wrong? Because the person on the other side, on both sides, think that what they're doing is right, and both sides would end up going in Swarg. So that was a question that just stuck me at that point of time, sir. If you can help me with some interpretation of that.
Yeah, that is why we refer to Shastra. We don't go by what we think is Dharma and not Dharma. We refer to the Shastra, Dharma Shastra, like Mahabharata, Ramayana, and the different Smritis, like Manu Smriti, the different Puranas, like the Bhagavata Purana, Vishnu Puran, Skanda Puran, Padma Puran. So these Puranas give us the principles of Dharma, what is right, what is wrong, ethics, morality, right and wrong. So the way that things happen today, how wars are fought today, in a large number of instances, the war is fought whimsically. It's just driven by, like the way the Mughals, the way when they came to India, there was no dharma in the way in which they fought the wars with our kings. Our kings followed dharma. They thought in terms of dharma yuddha. And because the other party was not following dharma, they got cheated, right? Many of our kings, they became victims because of that. They invited them. In a dharma yuddha, when there is arrangement for a war, then the two parties will talk to each other sweetly outside the battlefield. In the battlefield, they fight ferociously, but outside they talk sweetly and they host each other. They treat them like guests and so on. And the Hindu kings did that with the Muslims, not knowing that these are actually Rakshasas. So today, the way the wars are fought, they are just Rakshasas fighting with other Rakshasas. The two groups of Rakshasas who don't know any dharma fighting with each other. So nobody will go to Swarga for doing that. They will just go to Naraka only, go to hell. So dharma, to understand what dharma is, it's not about what we think it is. It is an understanding based on the Shastra. In the Gita, Sri Bhagavan says that Tasmat Shastram Pramanam Te. For everything that we do, we should refer to Shastra and do. Especially when there is a dilemma, this is right or wrong, and refer to Shastra. If you're not able to understand Shastra, then go to somebody who is very experienced in it, who has followed it for a long time. Listen to what that person has to say, or see what somebody else has done before, somebody who has been known to have followed Shastra earlier. Follow what that person has done. Mahajano yena gatassa pantaha. That is how dharma is defined. So my answer is very concise. I don't know if it fully answers your question, but I've actually answered in a nutshell. But I can speak to you more about Shastra, in a more leisurely manner.
No, I understood the gist of it. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you.
So we have now gained so we have
Yeah.
now gained some understanding of Bhakti Yoga. I also wanted to understand very precise what is karma yoga and Shnana yoga. Because somewhere I feel probably bhakti yoga is not really the path for me. Maybe the answer lies in something else.
Yeah. So Swati's question here is, she wants to know the difference between bhakti yoga, karma yoga, and jnana yoga. So to again put it very simply, in all the three systems of yoga, the objective is to connect with the Supreme, with Bhagavan. So in the karma yoga process, the process begins by identifying one's responsibilities, duties, and committing oneself to those duties without being bothered by success or failure in those duties. The goal is on the duty itself. The goal is the execution of duty properly, the way in which it is meant to be done, with sincerity, with honesty, without duplicity, with the understanding that this will elevate me. This will take me out of the rajas and tamas I am in and make me completely sattvic. And as I become sattvic, I become more eligible to connect with Bhagavan, to perform what is called as jnana or jnana yoga. Jnana yoga, jnanena yoga. Karma yoga is karmana yoga, means through karma yoga is done. So it's the karma yoga is actually the preparation stage for doing jnana yoga. Karma yoga is not an end by itself. In the process of karma yoga, also to cultivate the sattvic consciousness, it is said that whatever fruits are obtained at the end of doing work. Now, all work leads to fruit, especially if you do it sincerely, and you're supposed to do it sincerely. So naturally, if you do work sincerely, some positive results will come. Okay, now to develop the detachment, you don't take the fruit for yourself. You don't contemplate on the enjoyment that you get from the fruit. Instead, think that this fruit doesn't belong to me. I'll only take what I need to maintain myself, to keep myself going. I need something to continue doing my duty. I have to live. I have to maintain this body. I have to have a family. I need to have a house. So you take the minimum required, but give everything else for the service of Bhagavan in different ways. Okay, so if you are earning punya, you say, I don't want the punya. Sarvam Krishnarpanamastu. Okay, in Karma Yoga, Bhagavad-arpanam is an essential element of Karma Yoga. That is how you develop that detachment. Okay, Bhagavan is very much present in Karma Yoga. Otherwise, it's not Karma Yoga. This is how the Bhagavad-gita explains. I'll show you the shlokas in which this is explained. Okay, then you do Jnana Yoga. In Jnana Yoga, you then have an option because you have reached that level of sattva whereby you can fix your mind on Bhagavan in whichever form of Bhagavan you are thinking about him and stop doing your work. You cannot do that when you start Karma Yoga because your mind is not yet sattvic. It doesn't have the level of sattva to be able to do that in the beginning stage of Karma Yoga. But when you reach the stage of Jnana Yoga, when you're ready for doing Jnana Yoga, or you can say, only when you have reached that stage, you're ready for doing Jnana Yoga. And then you can give up your work if you want to do that, if you want to give up doing work, and you can only contemplate. All the time you contemplate on Bhagavan and contemplate on your own identity as not being this body. I am not this body. I am the Jivatma who lives in this body. I am the Jivatma. I am different from this body. I am spiritual in nature. My nature is the same as Brahma. I am not this body. I am not Jadavastu. I am eternal. This body is temporary. This kind of contemplation. Jnanena yoga. This is called jnana. Jnana means the knowledge, not just knowledge, any knowledge. Knowledge that I am not this body. Knowledge that I am a part of Bhagavan. Knowledge that Bhagavan and this matter, this Jada Shakti are different from each other. This knowledge, this is called Adhyatma Jnana. Later on, a few shlokas on in Bhagavad-gita, Sri Bhagavan himself will say, Adhyatma Jnanam Vidyanam, Adhyatma Vidya Vidyanam. Among all the types of learning, I am Adhyatma Vidya, this knowledge. Okay. So in the process of Jnana Yoga, you give time or you spend your time in contemplating on this knowledge. Your mind is again and again contemplating on this for hours together, Okay. Eventually, the mind becomes more and more sattvic and you start seeing everything as Bhagavan. Everywhere Bhagavan exists, and I'm also a part of that Bhagavan. Okay. So you reach a very high level of sattva. When sattva is very high in us, when rajas and tamas are very low, then that gyan becomes very spontaneous. We don't have to struggle to bring that gyan into our mind. It naturally exists in our mind, and we become, undisturbed by things like lust, greed, normally things which disturb us like anger, greed, impatience, those things don't disturb us anymore. Mind is very calm, very peaceful, very strong, a state of strength. Okay, now there a Jnana Yogi can make use of this methodology of Ashtanga Yoga. If he wants, he can then, pull the pran inside. He gets the strength to do that. And he can then think of Bhagavan. That is where bhakti is required for this path, I'm saying. On this path, bhakti comes in for the sake of mukti. Because without that bhakti, that last bhakti, mukti is not possible. Only Bhagavan can give that ability, or with Bhagavan's help only, you go above the three gunas. Otherwise, you remain in sattva guna. If a Jnana Yogi dies in that condition, then that Jnana Yogi will be born in some very high state of existence, like one of those great lokas like Maharloka, Tapoloka, like Brahma Loka, like that. But he won't get mukti unless he performs bhakti. Okay, now coming to Bhakti Yoga. Bhakti Yoga is a different path altogether. In Bhakti Yoga, right from day one, from the beginning itself, you accept Bhagavan as the central element of your life, which in Karma Yoga you don't do. So you do all your work thinking that I exist for Bhagavan's pleasure. This whole world is his, it belongs to him. So there is a feeling of affection, there's relationship, there's love. A feeling of love, affection, attraction, an attraction towards Bhagavan, which is not there in Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga. In Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Bhagavan is just like the way we look at the Chief Justice of India. The Chief Justice of India is like a lawmaker. He's in charge of the law. He's a distant personality. He's there, we respect him, but he's there just to ensure, and he's like my reference point. But in this path, Bhagavan is not just a reference point, he's much more than that. He is the object of affection. He is mine. Bhagavan mere hai, main Bhagavan ka hu. That feeling is there in Bhakti Yoga. So Bhakti Yoga proceeds like that. And so that is why the Bhakti Yogi doesn't have a strategy for thinking, what will I think at the time of death, etc. There's no separate methodology. In Bhakti Yoga, the process and the destination both are the same, where you start with Bhakti and you live with Bhakti forever. And you allow Bhagavan to decide whether you should be born again in this world or go and live with him or whatever, or you should become a tree in your next birth. You leave it to him. I'm willing to accept whatever you give me. That is the attitude of the Bhakti Yogi. That's the difference.
Which one is superior?
Bhakti is superior, yeah. Throughout the Gita, Bhagavan recommends Bhakti. Naturally, no. So just like you, if I ask you, the Chief Justice of India, who is in a more superior position, you or the Chief Justice's children? Naturally, with respect to him, the children of the Chief Justice are his intimate, they can go climb on his back. They know in and out of him, right? We cannot. We are only at a distance. We have to address him as your honor, etc., right? So naturally, Bhakti takes us to the highest destination, and the purest form of love, happiness comes in Bhakti.
So should we see all these three type of yoga in a differently, or should we combine them and practice in that manner?
Bhakti Yoga is a distinct path, means it doesn't require the help of Karma Yoga or Jnana Yoga or Dhyana Yoga. It doesn't require anything else. It's Swayam Prabala. It's powerful by itself.
So right now we are holding a position or one of the responsibility in the society.
Yes.
So we will have to perform the karma, right?
So
in that bhakti karma can we do?
Yes, of course.
That's what I am saying.
Yes.
In that process, we will obtain the jnana also.
We don't need it. Jnana is a byproduct of byproduct of bhakti. So karma and jnana, the fruits of karma, like punya, for example, is a byproduct of bhakti. It's not an aspired thing. It's not an aspired thing. You don't aspire for it.
And karma itself, karma yoga is not completely distinct from bhakti, right? So karma yoga itself contains some part of bhakti also.
No. That activity of offering whatever you get to Bhagavan is not considered bhakti.
Doing it rightfully doesn't include the bhakti form?
No, that is not bhakti. It is dharma.
Having whatever you do in that process, you always offer it to Lord Vishnu.
Yeah. So that arpanam, Bhagavad Arpanam, is not considered as bhakti the way bhakti is understood here. It looks like bhakti only.
Yes.
It appears like that, but it's not bhakti because bhakti resides in the consciousness. What is that person? What is the mentality of that person? Why is that person doing it? Okay. Bhakti is defined as anukulyana krishnanushilanam. When the person who is doing that activity is doing it with the motivation of giving pleasure to Bhagavan, उनके हित के लिए, उनके सुख के लिए, that thinking is there. I'm doing it for his pleasure, his happiness. He will like it. Just like when you go home, let's say you're going home after 4 months. You stayed here 4 months and then you took leave and you went home. You're going home after 4 months. So as you're traveling towards your home, you board a tempo here, you go to the station, you're waiting for the train. Your thoughts are filled with that affection that you will, with which you will see your parents, your brother, right? And on the way you're buying something, you go to the best sweet shop in Jamshedpur, you buy a packet of sweets, or maybe more than one packet, you want to buy something, you buy some clothes. ये जमशेदपुर में ही मिलता है, ये बाबा को अच्छा लगेगा, ये माता जी को अच्छा लगेगा. So that thinking that उनको अच्छा लगेगा, वो मुस्कुराएंगे जरूर. This kind of thought comes, right? When you think about them, they will smile when I give this. You are visualizing in your mind. Exactly the same thing in bhakti. That भगवान को ये अच्छा लगेगा. अगर मैं ऐसा करूंगा तो भगवान को अच्छा लगेगा. This kind of thinking. This is what drives bhakti. This is not there in karma yoga. Karma yoga, it's a mechanical action. It is said in the Shastra that whatever you get, you offer it to Bhagavan. So he says, Sarvam Krishna Arpanamastu. That's all. Mechanically, is offered there. He's done. You put a tick mark. Okay, ye bhi ho gaya. You understood?
Yes.
So in Bhakti Yoga, there is a mentality involved.
If I'm not wrong, like there is a discussion between like leaving everything and going towards tapasya and everything, and being a part of this like society and doing your karma. So I think that karma yogi versus that I'm forgetting the like, discussion we were having like
Yeah.
few months back.
Yeah.
So in that, I guess we concluded that being a karma yogi is like more important or more relevant, I guess.
More important for whom? Being a karma yogi is more important for whom?
Like better than just leaving everything and going to the forest.
Definitely. Definitely.
So that's why I am asking ki, which karma yoga is better than bhakti?
Than not doing anything. Karma yoga is not better than bhakti yoga. Karma yoga is better than not doing anything.
Okay.
That's why Bhagavan says, see, why that point comes in Bhagavad-Gita is because Bhagavad-Gita begins with Arjuna saying that I can't fight this war. I'm seeing all my relatives here. I want to leave and go. I would live by begging. It's better to live by begging. I'll go into the forest and live. So when he says that, he's basically reflecting the mentality of a person who says that, why should I do all this? Anyway, I don't want enjoyment. Let me just live a quiet life. I want to do dhyan on Bhagwan. So he says, you cannot do that. You are not qualified for doing that. Therefore, do karma yoga. Karma yoga is better than just leaving everything and going and sitting and pretending to do tapasya. Because nobody can do tapasya just like that.
Okay. Yeah.
You become eligible for doing tapasya by doing karma yoga. Karma yoga.
After you pass through these two, either of these two, then you are eligible to become a like bhakti yogi.
No. For bhakti yoga, there is no eligibility. For doing jnana, there is eligibility of karma yoga. For bhakti yoga, you can begin from zero. Bhakti doesn't say you leave and go to the forest. Bhakti yoga is done along with our duties. In Bhakti yoga also, the idea of going to the forest and sitting and meditating is condemned.
Okay.
You do your duty, do all your work. For example, now you're doing your FPM. Do your FPM seriously. But as you do it, connect with Bhagavan. Keep him as the central feature in your life. Or Jagannath in your case. Jai Jagannath.
Yeah, yeah.
I think
Sannyas is different than bhakti.
Yes, yes. So, yeah. Got it.
I think we may exceed the time by a few minutes today because there are two hands which have gone up. One is Jaideep. Jaideep?
Yes, good evening, sir. Thank you so much for your lesson. With regards to that question of things we can adopt from Bhishma's story,
Yeah.
I was
Yes.
just thinking from a different perspective. I'd like your insights on it. So Bhishma, as far as, I mean, this is just my second lesson, but from what I understood was Bhishma is highly principled. But he's so principled that to the point that he told his weakness, right, which led to his demise.
Yes.
When it comes to adopting this being highly principled, at least in the realm of humans, weakness is kind of seen. We always say, show no weakness, or rather, weakness is always exploited. So, to what extent do you think we should be principled? Is it okay to show weakness? In fact, even in like from a professor's perspective, students when they go for interviews, one of the questions they have a hard time is, what is your weakness? So
Yes.
nobody wants to say what their weakness is. So what are your thoughts on that, sir?
Very simple. See, bhakti is a path of being practical. So showing weakness to the right person is a correct thing to do. For example, in front of your teacher who is a well-wisher, a person who is your well-wisher, a person who is going to help you, your father, your mother, to show weakness to them, that's the right thing to do. But in the course of say in your work, in the workplace, or in a business transaction, you're doing business with somebody, you know that the other person will exploit you if he knows your weakness, right? Then obviously you will not show it. You should not show it. So the Niti Shastra has a shloka. It says, Nirvishena api sarpena kartavya mahati phata visham bhavatu vamastu patatopo bhayankaraha. It says even a snake which does not have poison should display a big hood. Pata means hood in Sanskrit. Whether there is poison or not, the hood should be very fearsome. Why? Because otherwise, the enemies of that snake will attack the snake or will exploit the snake. So, for its own protection, the snake has to do that. So, therefore, our Shastra gives very practical advice. You show your weakness where it has to be shown. In this case, in this particular case, whom is Bhishma showing it to? Not to any arbitrary enemy, but here he is showing it to the people that he loves, and he wants them to win the war. He wants the Pandavas to win the war. He wants Krishna to be the dominant, personality on this planet. All the time he's advocating that, right? So there, at that time, he shows his weakness to Arjuna, or he reveals his weakness. He gives that idea that, the Pandavas are so dear to him, and he wants them to win. Otherwise, we should not. And if somebody is going for an interview and they're being asked, tell me about your weakness. Now, I would advise that person to be very clever in the way they reveal the weakness. They should reveal a weakness so they come across as honest. But they should also say that despite this weakness, I have so many other strengths which compensate for the weakness. It's exactly the way that when you write the limitations of your paper, right? That's a point in which you reveal some weakness, that you admit there is a weakness in my paper. But how do you do it? You don't just say my paper has all these weaknesses, therefore please reject my paper. No, you say that there is a limitation 1, but despite this limitation, this is overcome because of some reason. There's some reason why this limitation is not such a serious one. So you reveal 5 limitations and 5 reasons why they should not be rejecting your paper despite those limitations. That's how. So you have to do it cleverly, depending on the context.
Thank you so much, sir.
Sir, Garima here actually have a related follow-up question, if it's okay.
Yeah, Garima. Yeah, please tell me.
So I've been living in Japan for a few years, and a key concept I've learned here is being foolishly honest. Like, life becomes much simpler if you're not trying to be political, strategize, and just do things as they are. So I was just wondering, in light of what you just said, how do I frame that concept?
Well, I think I also think, because our Shastra says that simplicity is one of the greatest virtues that somebody can have. And in the list of qualities that Sri Bhagavan gives in the 13th chapter of Jnana, one of the qualities is arjavam, or simplicity, being simple. So simplicity is a very great quality. But simplicity and simplisticness, being simplistic is different from being simple, or being a simpleton. Being a simpleton means somebody who is foolish from the perspective of practicality. So when we live in a practical world, we have to adapt and respond in accordance with the realities that surround us, even if we are otherwise simple. If a thief comes to your house with a knife and is trying to rob you and harm your relatives, how will the Japanese respond to it? Tell me. Will they say that now, please come? Whatever I have is all yours. I'm a simple person. I'm sure even the Japanese will not do that, right? They'll probably take out that sword, that samurai sword they have. I don't know. Garima will know better being in Japan.
Yeah, no, you're right. I think they're honest, but they're not like stupid or wouldn't give away everything.
Simpletons,
So get
yes.
got you.
They are the ones who actually dropped the bomb on. Sorry, I beg your pardon. They are the ones who attacked Pearl Harbor, right? They attacked before the bombs were dropped on them.
Yeah, right.
Very aggressive also when they have to be. So the Japanese are aggressive when they have to be, and they are simple otherwise. Yes, I agree with you. Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you all. I think today we have already exceeded the time. Niharika had a question, but
We'll take it later, sir. Thank you. No problem.
Thank you, Niharika. So I will now close the session for today. I'll go back to my screen. I think I'll share my screen again. ॐ स्वस्ति प्रजाभ्यः परिपालयन्तां न्यायेन मार्गेण महीं महिषाः गोब्राह्मणेभ्यो शुभमस्तु नित्यं लोकाः समस्ताः सुखिनो भवन्तु ॐ तद्विष्णोः परमं पदगुं सदा पश्यन्ति सूरयः दिवि चक्षुराततं तद्विप्रासो विपन्यवो जागृवागुंसः समिन्धते विष्णोर्यत्परमं पदं पर्याप्त्या अनन्तरायाय सर्वस्तमोतिरात्र उत्तममहद्भवति सर्वस्याप्त्यै सर्वस्य जित्यै सर्वमेव तेनाप्नोति सर्वं जयति ॐ शान्तिः 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 हरि ओम सत् धन्यवादाः पुनर्मिलामः